What if I told you the real battle for Georgia football supremacy is not just being fought on Saturdays, but behind closed doors, in private negotiations, in NIL war rooms, and in the silent bidding contests that rivals do not want Bulldog fans to see? Because when you start looking at the estimated money surrounding Georgia's top players, a bigger picture begins to emerge. This is not just a football roster. This is a power structure. This is an empire. And according to public reporting from outlets like On3, Dawn of the Dog, and College Sports Network, the numbers around Georgia's most valuable players reveal exactly why the rest of college football keeps looking over its shoulder. Let's start with the face of the machine, Gunner Stockton. According to On3, Stockton signed a new Georgia NIL deal for the 2026 season, and public reporting around that deal places him at roughly $1.3 million. Let that sink in. $1.3 million for one player, one quarterback, one man holding the keys to Kirby Smart's next title chase. And what makes this number even more dangerous for rivals is that according to reporting repeated by Dawn of the Dog from Stockton's representation, he could have made 2 to 3 times more if he had entered the portal. That means Georgia didn't just keep a quarterback. Georgia kept a quarterback who chose legacy over the open market feeding frenzy. Alabama has to think about that. Texas has to think about that. Ohio State absolutely has to think about that. Then you get to Nate Frazier, and this is where the warning siren for the rest of the SEC gets louder. Based on public valuation references from On3 and a College Sports Network ranking from 2025, Frazier lands in the range of $730,000 to $850,000. That is not backup money. That is not nice little endorsement deal money. That is star running back, centerpiece weapon, nightmare fuel money. Dawn of the Dog even highlighted how much transfer portal noise surrounded Frazier before he stayed in Athens, and when a back with that kind of explosiveness, that kind of value, and that kind of rumored leverage chooses to remain inside Georgia's system, that tells you something powerful. Georgia is not just recruiting talent, Georgia is controlling the market around talent. Now move to KJ Bolden, and this is where the defensive side of the empire flexes its muscle. According to College Sports Network, Bolden carried a public NIL figure of $631,000, and using that as the anchor, a current estimate in the $630,000 to $700,000 range is entirely believable. Think about what that means. Georgia is paying premium level value not just to offensive stars, but to a safety. A safety. That is how loaded this roster is. That is how far ahead the machine is operating. While other programs are still trying to buy one headline player to win the social media cycle, Georgia has enough structural power to place high-end market value on defenders who make quarterbacks panic and coordinators lose sleep. And then comes Ellis Robinson IV, one of the names Georgia fans have been waiting to explode into national superstardom. Public valuation references tied to his recruiting profile and later Georgia-related coverage put him in elite territory, and the most realistic estimate sits between $450,000 and $550,000. That range is not accidental. That range screams future lockdown corner, future NFL aura, future billboard face of a championship secondary. According to On3's historical valuation framework, Ellis entered college with major market gravity already attached to his name. Georgia did not simply sign him. Georgia secured a premium asset before much of the country even realized how expensive that asset could become. Justin Williams is another piece of this hidden structure. Earlier public valuation references around his arrival in Athens put him in a strong position already, and a realistic current estimate places him between $370,000 and $450,000. That is exactly the kind of number that tells you Georgia's recruiting victories are not fading after signing day. They are compounding. Georgia keeps blue-chip defenders in the building, develops them, multiplies their profile, and protects the roster from outside raids. Rivals want to pretend this is just about coaching. It is not just coaching. It is vision, budget discipline, player loyalty, and roster economics operating at the highest level in the sport. Now let's get into the names where the market becomes more shadowy, but still extremely revealing. Ernest Green projects in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. Offensive linemen usually do not get the same public attention as quarterbacks and running backs, but if Georgia is putting that kind of estimated value on a tackle, that tells you the people around the program understand the truth. You cannot build a national title machine without protecting the crown jewel under center. The trench players may not always get the glamorous headlines, but inside a serious football economy, blindside protection is gold, and Georgia knows it. Gentry Williams comes next in an estimated range of $250,000 to $350,000. For some programs, that is a major spend. For Georgia, that is part of the ecosystem, part of the security system, part of the reason the defensive backroom keeps looking like an assembly line for terror. When Georgia can bring in and hold players with that level of projected market value, the message to the rest of the country is simple. The Bulldogs are not desperate shoppers in the NIL era. They are portfolio managers. Then you have Khalil Barnes, estimated between $220,000 and $320,000. Again, these are not official salaries, and these are not all publicly confirmed contracts. These are grounded estimates based on roster status, transfer value, public valuation culture, and comparable market signals. But the pattern matters. The pattern is everything. Georgia is stacking upper-tier athletes with six-figure gravity all across the depth chart. Not one or two guys, not a thin top line with a weak middle, a real structure, a real war chest, a real championship economy. Dawg lands in the range of $200,000 to $300,000, and even that lower slot on this list should alarm rivals. Why? Because when your 9th or 10th most lucrative player still carries that kind of estimated six-figure value, you are not running a normal college football program anymore. You are running a fortress. Depth becomes expensive. Competition becomes expensive. Staying power becomes expensive. And Georgia keeps finding ways to stay armed in every category that matters. Finally, Amaris Williams rounds out this top 10 with an estimated range of $180,000 to $280,000. Some people will hear that and say it sounds modest compared to the million-dollar headline at the top, but that misses the point entirely. The point is not just what the number is, the point is what the number represents. It represents Georgia's ability to turn a roster into a layered market of value, leverage, and future upside. It represents a pipeline where even the lower end of a top 10 earnings estimate still carries enough weight to matter in recruiting battles, retention battles, and prestige battles. So, when you step back and look at the full picture, the message is impossible to ignore. Gunnar Stockton at around $1.3 million, Nate Frazier around $730,000 to $850,000, KJ Bolden around $630,000 to $700,000, Ellis Robinson IV around $450,000 to $550,000, Justin Williams around $370,000 to $450,000, Ernest Green around $300,000 to $400,000, Gentry Williams around $250,000 to $350,000, Khalil Barnes around $220,000 to $320,000, Dawg around $200,000 to $300,000, and Amaris Williams around $180,000 to $280,000. Add all of that together, and what do you really see? You see a program that is not just surviving the NIL era, you see a program weaponizing it. And that is the secret rivals hate most. Georgia is not panicking. Georgia is not improvising. Georgia is not begging for relevance. Georgia is operating like a national superpower that already knows where college football is going next. According to On3, according to Dawn of the Dog, according to College Sports Network, and according to the logic of the modern roster economy, the Bulldogs are building something bigger than a team. They are building separation. And when Georgia creates separation, the rest of the sport starts calling it unfair. But in Athens, they call it preparation. They call it standards. They call it the cost of staying on top. And for rivals staring up at this roster, those numbers do not just look big, they look like a warning. The estimates presented in this video are based on public reports and the context of On3's Georgia roster/rating structure assessment, On3's coverage of Stockton's 2026 deal, Dawn of the Dawg's reporting on Stockton and Nate Frazier, and College Sports Network's Georgia NIL name, likeness, and influence ranking. On3 also notes that NIL valuations are projected market values, not exact indicators of signed contracts.